we've been getting on Tim Geithner throughout, and Larry Summers to
I've
a
noticed.
large degree, right?
Yeah.
And not a big fan of their work. And something we've been talking about on the show a lot is they always say, oh, we had to do the bailout. But to me, that's a completely insufficient answer. The question is, how did you do the bailout? I'm not saying you shouldn't have done a bailout. I'm saying, did you really have to give away $62 billion through AIG, okay, through the back door? Matt Taibbi's written a lot about it. Krugman's written about it. And now the Inspector General, the watchdog for the TARP program, came out and said, yeah, they gave it away. I mean, they gave 100 cents on the dollar. It's ridiculous. So for the first time last night, I saw a story, hey, they're thinking of replacing Geithner. And I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe it, right? I'm like, great news. Like, we're going to head on the right track now. Do you know who the possible candidate is now?
Who?
The CEO of J.P. Morgan.
You gotta be kidding me.
I shit you not. Okay, I mean, are you joking? Jamie Dimon. Now, look, let me explain. Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan are among the big bankers, probably the best of the lot. Now, why do I say that? Because they were not as heavily invested in the subprime nonsense. They didn't get as damaged as some of the other companies. They managed their risk a little bit better. So, I mean, keep it real, right? He's not the worst of the worst. He's not the former CEO of Bear Stearns or Lehman or whatever it might be, right? But so I come at it with an open mind, but I can't believe they're going to take a CEO of one of the top 4 banks to replace Geithner. That doesn't make no kind of sense. But I went in with an open mind.
I totally understand why they're doing it.
Now, well, let's get to that in 1 second. So then I looked at his proposals, right? I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's going to be tough, right? Because he knows how to manage risk, et cetera, right? No way. Opposes every single regulation proposed, not just by the White House, but by Congress as well. So, how about a group to be a consumer watchdog to watch out for the consumers and watch out against the banks? He's like, no, terrible idea. It'll cost the banks too much money. Oh, will it? Oh, we're so sorry, right? And how about controlling derivatives and making sure that we monitor them? No. Don't monitor any derivatives from the banks. And then at the end, as you see him oppose one policy proposal after another, he'd be worse than Geithner on the policy proposals, right? You realize, well, of course, he's the CEO of J.P. Morgan.
Yeah, that's what he's going to want.
Yeah, look, at a best case scenario, a banker's perspective is all he's had. Right? He doesn't have the perspective of consumer. He doesn't have the perspective of the public good, et cetera. I mean, could he develop one? He's a smart guy. I'm sure he could, right? But if you're going to go in the direction of getting rid of Geithner, why would you get a guy who is even further to the right of him and for less regulation and more out of control Wall Street? And so that leads us to, why do you think he's going in his direction?
Because how many people really understand the capital flows at that level that aren't professional bankers?
Well,
you've had a revolving door at the Fed and at the regulatory agencies where people go in and out. So you don't have like a cadre of trained people who know the issues.
Look, I hear you on that, but there are plenty of economists
and by the way, and I'm not saying this guy's the right choice. I'm saying that's their thinking behind it.
No, I don't agree. I mean, look, I agree that that's their thinking behind it, but I think that that's the number one problem. Okay, their number one problem is they think, well, who can I get but the bankers? Right? And it never occurs to them that, hey, maybe the bankers aren't right. Maybe the bankers are the ones that got us into this mess, and that it's not that they're the only ones that know what they're doing. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. I mean, like, that's never occurred in the worldview of the Obama Treasury Department.
I'd say 30% of them don't know what they're doing. But that's just like the rule I use. 30% of people in any job don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's true. And in fact, and we've talked a lot about this, that it's not that the top-level executives of these banks don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing to make money for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if one of them were to turn around and say, hey, you know what? I know all the tricks of the trade, and that's why I made $500 million or whatever I made. Now I'm going to look out for the consumer to make sure that doesn't happen. Here is my list of policy proposals to make sure the bankers like me don't rob you again. Okay, I'm the most open-minded man in America. I'll consider that, right? That is not how Jamie Dimon is coming. So if they go to Jamie Dimon, it gets worse. And so, Wes, to answer your question, are there economists in the country that know what they're doing, that understand this stuff? Of course! Why don't we get somebody like Bill Black, who already did the S&L crisis and got us out of the S&L crisis in a very reasonable and successful way. You think he doesn't know this stuff? He knows it. They don't want to go to him because he doesn't have the Wall Street mentality. Which leads to the next question, which is, why is the Obama administration obsessed with the Wall Street mentality? Like, they can't get their mind out of it.
Where do you think all the money comes from?
So when you say that full-out cynic, you know, the money's pouring in to whoever. It doesn't matter if it's Obama. It doesn't matter if it's Democrats.
And it's not just the political contributions. You have to understand, who do they go out to dinner with? Who do they spend weekends with? Who do they vacation with? Who do they talk to on the phone? Whose emails do they answer? It's not John Q. Public. It's the guy worth $1 billion who they want to be on the good terms with.
Do you think Obama's in that same camp? Do you think that Obama has been, you know, now talking to guys? And, you know, he went to Harvard Law School, went to Columbia, went to these good schools.
It's everyone he went to school with, man.
Yeah, he's been in that bubble for a long time, so he thinks, yeah, of course, Jamie Dimon's right, Tim Geithner's right. But he's not so stupid that he can't comprehend that there's a bubble there. Do you see what I'm saying? That there's some.
But he doesn't have a background in economics or business, and he doesn't know how to get out of that bubble. So he's looking for someone who's going to tell him, don't worry about the bubble. It's a temporary thing. It'll fade away once all the other problems have been fixed.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not defending it or anything else. I'm just saying this is their thinking on it.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why, although I'm excited today, and I'm always excited to bring you the news, but it's a little depressing there, because this is point number one. This is bad news. I mean, if their idea of, hey, all right, maybe people are right, Geithner's hasn't handled it well, let's go to a guy who's further right and further enmeshed in Wall Street, then you get a little hopeless as to, on this issue, of whether they're ever going to get it right.
They're not going to get it right.
Like, if their list of people that might replace Geithner are, hey, Jamie Dimon, but at the same time, you know, James Galbraith and Bill Black and Joseph Stiglitz, you go, okay, they're at least looking at their range of possibilities. Jamie Dimon is not a range of possibility. It's a disaster. So, and again, don't get me wrong.
He's a salesman, because ultimately that's what the head of every company is.
And apparently he's selling himself real well. And like I was saying, don't get me wrong, Jamie Dimon is not necessarily a terrible CEO, like, oh, he robbed you.
I'm sure he does good stuff for the bank.
Right, and of the different banks, he was the most risk-averse, which was a good thing, and J.P. Morgan is the most stable. But it depends on, you know, who you trust in and who whose worldview you think is the right one. I think that's why I'm against Jamie Dimon. When they ask him, he says, oh, well, look, I'd love to. No comment on anything like that, but, you know, he'd love to serve his country at some point.
Have you seen all the TYT videos from today? Check out the Young Turks YouTube channel. Do it already.